thank you once again, Simi and Biochar and Carbon Research Journal for inviting me to give this presentation. The work that I'm going to talk about this afternoon is somewhat related to biochar, since this is the topic of the journal. And we have been using biochar in our main research of managing food waste using anaerobic digestion. So Simi knows because he has been a member of our program here for a few years, quite a long time ago, more than 10 years already. So it was our pleasure to be able to work with Simi and a lot of other people in our program. But just want to acknowledge that this work was supported by our National Research Foundation under its Campus for Research Excellence and Technological Enterprise program. So in Singapore, the work actually is not just in Singapore. We have a very strong partner that we've been working with together for many years now under this program from Shanghai Jiao Tong University. So all of the people here, I would like to thank them for working with us, and the work that I'm presenting today has their contributions, including Professor Peng Ying Hong, who's the program director. I'm the co-program director of this program, and Professor Wang Qihua from NUS and Professor Lo Kai-chi are the close collaborators in this work here, together with Professor Tai Yin-jing from Shanghai Jiao Tong. Of course, the work has been done by my team members here, in particular, Dr. Zhang Jingxing, Dr. Lim Junwei, Tian Hailin, Jonathan Zhang Le, also, and so on, so many others, and Dr. Li Wangliang included. So, it's work that we have been doing over more than 14 years now. We're not going to talk about all of that from the beginning, but what I want to talk about is how we have been using biochar together with our food waste management system in Singapore that we have developed. What are the effects of biochar on it? Of course, the need to explain about the situation in Singapore first. So if you are not familiar, some of you might know this already, but if not familiar with Singapore, we are a very small country, about almost 6 million people now in island of area about 780 square kilometers. So a very small country. But we do produce a lot of waste, as you can see here. This is from 2000 to 2014. I show the waste statistics for these few years to show that there was a big increase from that period, from about 5 million tons of total waste generated to about 7.5, 8 million tons of waste per year. And you can also see that we do recycle quite a lot of it. About half of it is recycled, so about 1.8 million tons to 4.5 million tons per year. So the total amount of waste that we do need to dispose of during this period was about 3 to 4 million tons a year. The more recent statistics can be seen here, though. So up to 2018, you can see from 2014 onwards, the number have stabilized quite a bit, the total amount of waste disposed of. And we stabilize around 8 million tons, 7.5, 8 million tons of total waste a year. And these wastes include things like food waste, plastic waste, sludge, glass, and so on, metals included. So the numbers and the different lines there show, of course, increase as the population grew from about 3 million to 6 million now. So just to give you a bit more breakdown on the type of waste that we have, this is statistics from our National Environment Agency. So the different type of waste disposed of range from construction debris, the ferrous metals, to horticultural and wood waste, paper, glass, food, and so on. Then, as you can see at the bottom, this is statistics from 2022. Total waste disposed of, or total waste generated, about 7.6 million tons. The amount that's recycled is about 60% of that, 4.6 million, and total waste that's disposed of is 3 million tons. But our focus is on food waste. So food waste in particular For that year, there was about 750,000 tons of food waste, and only about 17% of that has been recycled. Actually, recycle means that it's been converted into things like fertilizer uh, or animal feed. And the rest of it, 600,000 tons, are disposed of. And Singapore way of managing these waste to be disposed of is for it to be sent to incineration plants. We do not have landfills here in Singapore other than landfill for the incinerated bottom ash. So all of this 3 million tons that have to be disposed of, all these waste are sent to 4 big incineration plants. Of course, if you know incineration plants, they take the waste and burn it down and reduce the volume up to about 10% of its original volume, and that is in the form of bottom ash. The bottom ash, of course, have to be landfill. So we do send it to an offshore landfill that is about 20 kilometers to the southwest of Singapore. This landfill was formed in the early 80s, and it has been filling up with these bottom ash since then. And we are projecting it to be full by the year 2035. So this is a problem, of course. Once it's full, we either have to find a new landfill or maybe fill it up even more to above sea level. So Singapore's government is urgently looking into this matter. And one of the ways that the government have looked into this is to try to manage waste differently rather than just sending these to the incineration plants. If we can reduce the waste, either by reducing it from being generated, or if it's generated, how can we reuse it or recycle them more effectively so that there's a zero waste being generated. So that was this zero waste master plan that was developed in 2019. For food waste in particular, the government says that all food waste generating sites have to segregate their food waste so that it can be treated. Because if you take food waste and put it together with all the other municipal solid waste, it's very hard to make use of it for reuse or recycling. So that's why the government has been just incinerating it. If you want to treat like paper, plastic, and food waste together, incineration probably is the only feasible way. But if we can segregate it, then we can make use of it better, such as in the way of using anaerobic digestion. So without the presence of plastics or paper, non-digestible material, anaerobic digestion will convert food waste very well into almost fully 100% into a biogas, which comprises of methane and carbon dioxide, with a byproduct that is a liquid digestate that is rich in nutrients. So the food waste then will not have to be sent to incineration and will not generate bottom ash. This can be made into useful materials of fertilizer and biogas for power generation. So that was the plan that we have, and we've been funded by the government to do this. But our main way of doing this is not through large-scale anaerobic digesters. Singapore is a small country, as I mentioned, and every inch of land is very valuable. So if you look in the middle of the island, 1 square feet costs about 1,000 to 3,000 Singapore dollars. So it's very expensive. So we can't build, or we don't want to build just a very large digester to handle all the 800,000 tons of food waste that we are generating. If we can build small decentralized systems that are placed on site, say where you're generating the food waste, like in restaurants or shopping malls, or in the case here, what we have is, well, in Singapore, we have hawker centers, so where people go to eat, like a food court. So if we place it there, the food waste doesn't have to be transported, firstly, but it also can be converted into this biogas and liquid fertilizer on site. And you can use the biogas for electricity on site, and you can grow vegetables or plants using the fertilizer. So this was what we've been doing since 2014, developing these decentralized systems and using them from small scale all the way to a pilot scale. Before I talk about this system itself, I just want to show you what we mean by food waste. So if you see the picture here, we have like all these kinds of food waste from half-eaten food, that's the table waste, or while you're preparing the food, which is the kitchen waste part. So usually they are not segregated. They will be contaminated with things like plastics, metal cans, carton boxes, milk bottles, and so on. So if you can separate out these non-digestible materials or very hard to digest materials, then it would make this anaerobic digestion very effective. Because if you take a look at food waste, we have analyzed food waste. The first column on the left here is what we have analyzed. This, of course, made of mostly carbon-based materials. So the volatile solids, volatile organic compounds can be digested is about 30%. And carbon content of these total solids is about 51%. There are a lot of hydrogen, oxygen, sulfur, nitrogen, and so on. So this food waste, if we run it through a biomethane potential measurement, it can generate 570 milliliters of methane per gram of volatile solids. So that's a lot of biogas you can generate from these kinds of food waste. So we took the food waste from this hawker center or food court, as you can call it, and develop a pilot testing system to look at the real world operating environment, not just lab-based bioreactor. So this is a hawker center, as you can see on the picture here. On the right-hand side, this outdoor seating with a lot of about 60 stalls selling different kinds of food, as you can see, from barbecue, seafood to drinks, to chicken rice or noodles and so on. So we were looking at this, trialing it in this site. The work was funded by our National Environment Agency for this pilot trial to look at feasibility of such an on-site system, economically, of course, technologically, and also the life cycle assessment, and whether it is really environmentally better to do such a decentralized system. I won't go into too much detail. I want to focus on whether how this system work with and without the addition of biochar, because we found some very interesting findings through learning of the operation of this pilot trial. So this system, the main part of it is the digester in the middle. So we actually deployed a 8,000 liter bioreactor that is just a stir tank. And then there are blenders and sorters and grinders to grind the food waste, which we feed into a feeding tank first before we put it into the digester. And then the biogas produced, we purify it, store it in the biogas tank, and then run the biogas engine to produce electricity. The digestate, the liquid that comes out as a byproduct, we store it and then convert it into fertilizer to use to grow plants. So this chart here shows the amount of food waste that is generated from this hawker center food court. So the number fluctuates, as you can see, throughout the week, different days of the week, because this is a food court that is by the sea. So it's not like within a shopping mall. So people go to this park by the sea on weekends. So they'll be generating more food waste, about 300 kilograms per day. And during the weekdays, not so many people go, so the amount of food waste generated is lower. So like on Wednesday, Thursday, the amount is only about 150 kilograms. And that's only a small part of the total waste. The chart on the bottom right here shows the total waste, including digestible waste, non-digestible waste, or recycled waste. So the total waste is about 3,000 to 5,000 kilograms per day. It fluctuates over the different days of the week. Food waste is only less than 10% of this total waste. So we actually developed this bioreactor ourselves, designed all the different parts, had it fabricated and shipped to this site in the east coast of Singapore. So we placed it next to the bin center where all the waste are collected, and then have been running. We ran it for 2 years from 2020 to 2022. That was during the COVID period, if you remember. So actually, they started right when COVID started, and then ended before Singapore was fully uh, open for business after COVID. So that also caused some issues with this trial because, as you know, COVID in many countries there are shutdowns, there are times where people are not allowed to go out, so that decreased the amount of food waste that's produced. So the different parts, as you can see here, actually fabricated and tested and operated on site. And we collected the food waste from this food court hawker center. So the top left picture here are the waste from the diners, so from the table waste. So after they have eaten or partially eaten, what's remaining, that's the top left. And the top right pictures are those from the stall holders that were cooking the food. So mostly, as you can see, vegetables and uncooked food or part of the food that they don't use for cooking. So we took all of this and characterized them again for the same parameters like total solids and volatile solids, carbon, nitrogen, and so on. So one very important thing I want to point out is at the bottom here. The table waste, the waste that comes from partially eaten or uneaten food from the diners, has a higher biogas yield. So compared to those from the stall holders that were cooking the food. So about 200 milliliters per kilogram of waste compared to just 32 from the kitchen side. This is because, as you can see, the kitchen side were mostly vegetables. So there were not a lot of, the kitchen will not be throwing out the noodles or rice. There are some times when they expire, so they will throw a lot of that. But mostly these are parts of the vegetables that are not used for cooking or people do not use. So those contributed to the lower theoretical biogas yield. And that is all from the lower carbon to nitrogen ratio. If you do this in the lab, you'll find that the digestion of the kitchen waste is actually poorer. So we ran this for over 2 years, as we said, with different shutdown periods during this COVID period. And we found that at the beginning, phase one, as we call it, the first almost 1 year, we are just operating it at ambient conditions without heating the digester. The amount of food waste that we were using was about 25 kilograms. So it was not the expected 300 kilograms that we found before COVID. So during the COVID period, there was much lesser food waste. And so we've been running this at very small amounts of food waste. Then in the second phase, we added biochar to this. And I'll tell you why we add biochar in the next slide. And in the third phase, we were looking at increasing the temperature to see if that would increase the performance of the digestion. So we ran it at mesophilic conditions. Ambient conditions in Singapore outdoors during the daytime is about 30, 35 degrees. But at night, it falls down to about 20, 25 degrees. So the ambient condition average out to be 25 degrees. Mesophilic conditions, if you can heat it up to 35, 40 degrees, it would actually help to increase the performance of the system. So the performance of the digester, first by looking at how much we loaded it over the different phases. So you can see phase one spans the first more than 300 days. Then phase two was a shorter period of time, and phase three even shorter period of time towards the end, the second half of the study. And as you can see, phase one, the amount of food waste loaded were quite low at the beginning. Some days it were higher, but as the COVID period was ending, more people went to the food court. The amount of food waste was higher, and even weekly loading. This is weekly loading rate, not daily loading rate. So the data shows about 400 kilograms per week towards the end of this first year study. And the biogas production, as you can see here, the biogas production for the first phase was quite low. The average biogas yield was only about 83 liters per kilogram. Compared to the theoretical, what we're expecting from the lab itself was about 500. From the analysis of the food waste, between 30 to 300, depending on whether it's a lot of kitchen waste or dining table waste. That means the digester is not operating very effectively. When we added biochar, so that's why we did a phase two, we added biochar, the biogas production increased from 83 to 116. So the average biogas yield went up about 30%. And if we further try to improve the performance with mesophilic operation at 35 degrees, the biogas yield increased a bit more by about a few percentages. So the biochar did help to increase the biogas production. So this is the volumetric biogas production daily over the 300, 400 days of operation. So the average biogas production rate without biochar was 0.34 cubic meters per cubic meter of the bioreactor. With the biochar, it doubled to 0.75, and then operating it at mesophilic conditions increased to 1 cubic meter biogas per cubic meter of reactor. The methane content were quite stable, about 55-60% as expected. So why was this happening? That at the first phase, the operation was not so good. We looked at the FOS TAC value to determine whether the digester was fed optimally. So if the amount like carbon to nitrogen ratio was not suitable for the digestion, the FOS TAC value here will be quite low. So what we found was during the first phase, the FOS TAC value was only 8.24. But when we added biochar, it increased to 12.8, and the third phase increased to 13.9. So this shows one indication of the reason for the poorer efficiency in the first phase. But I'll show you some more data about this. The electricity generation, of course, follows accordingly. So we took the biochar, we stored it, we ran a biogas engine to produce electricity to supply to the hawker center, and this shows that the electricity increased as the biogas volume increased, and that is what we expected. So why, again, did the first phase not behave so well for digestion? So that was the issue we tried to understand. The digester does work. You do not really need external heating. You can operate it ambiently, but at the low organic loading rate that we have, about 0.07 to 0.81 kilograms of volatile solid per cubic meter, that is very low. We found that it was not operating very well. The biogas yield was very low, 0.7 cubic meters per kilogram of volatile solids. Okay, so we tried to figure out why this was. One of the few causes or reasons for this could be process instability, because the low organic loading rate, then the bioreactor is not stable. You're not feeding it constantly and sufficiently. If it's not stable, then the whole system is not going to be effective. The other one is they could be accumulating a lot of volatile fatty acids. So this could happen if your carbon to nitrogen ratio is very low, then your VFAs will accumulate. And the third possible reason is ammonia inhibition. That happens when your CN ratio is very high, you have too much proteins. So that could is not what we believe. We believe it's the second one. Process instability, of course, is obvious, but we also believe that the volatile fatty acids have accumulated, and that can be analyzed through the drop in the pH. So if you have too much carbon, the acidification of the bioreactor happens faster than methanogenesis. As pH decreases, methanogenesis is inhibited. So that we actually measured the pH, and we found that the volatile fatty acids, as you can see here, it actually increased different types of volatile fatty acids, ranging from acetic acid to propionic acid and the total volatile acids before we added biochar. So you can see there's a peak here. As we added biochar, it decreased. So you can actually help to alleviate the VFA increase. So the VFA did increase, the pH increased, and the pH decreased, becoming more acidic, and the Fostak value of the digester went down, as I've shown earlier. But when you added biochar, the volatile fatty acid concentration decreased, and the Fostak value of the digester increased to stable value, and the bioreactor actually has recovered in a way. So even without changing anything, we kept the same feed, same poor carbon to nitrogen ratio. We cannot change that because the low carbon to nitrogen ratio, we believe, is due to the high amounts of vegetables, not enough proteins that contribute to the nitrogen. So too much vegetables increases the CN ratio, increases the acidification of the reactor, so inhibits methanogenesis and decreases the performance of the digester. But just by adding biochar, a small amount of biochar we added, only like 0.055 grams per liter of biochar, we can help the system to recover, and the biogas yield has increased subsequently because of this. So we believe that the biochar help to absorb some of the volatile fatty acids, allowing the pH to stabilize even with the low CN ratio. Then the methanogenesis will not be inhibited, and the whole system can perform as better than before. We increased the temperature, as we said, with and without biochar. So we ran the digester at mesophilic conditions of 35 degrees. Without biochar, the performance has increased without biochar. So the specific gas yield went up to 1.79. That's a 27% increase. So you can recover this, but as you add biochar, the performance improves even better. So we tried to figure out if the microbial community has been affected by the addition of the biochar. So analyze the microbial community with and without biochar. So just to summarize a lot of data in here, with biochar supplementation, we found that this archaea community, the phylum of Halobacter, increased significantly. So the archaea is the one that does the methanogenesis, so producing methane. So if you stabilize their community, their presence within the community, then they would function, and the methanogenesis would continue. So in particular, the Methanocysita genus, they recover. We shown it to have to be present more when we added biochar. So the addition of biochar have increased the specific biogas production, only even when we added only a small amount, small dose, and promoted 90% more of this methanosite growth. So why is biochar doing this, right? What are the effects of biochar? There are many research done on the addition of biochar in anaerobic digestion, and there are a number of theories about this, including the ability of the biochar to act as a support for the different microbes to grow. So just as a solid support, that's possible. And they aggregate the different species to function as a community. That's one theory. Another theory is that there is direct interspecies electron transfer with the biochar. Since the biochar is a carbonaceous material, there are some small conductivity, and it promotes electron transfer. And this helps with the anaerobic digestion process for all the different species working together. And there are also effects of biochar as a buffering system. The biochar is porous, there are a lot of functional groups on the biochar that can help to absorb the volatile fatty acids, as I mentioned. So these are the different theories that we believe. And we did further lab-based study on this. We have a similar digester in the lab, not much smaller, about 1,000 liters, not 8,000 liters. And we looked at the effects of biochar more specifically. And more specifically, we wanted to see if the biochar worked together with supplementation of the different kinds of food waste. If you remember, we're saying in that real world system, there were a lot of vegetable waste, not enough proteins. And even if you get the anaerobic digestion to work, to recover in a way, it's still not very optimal. And the one very interesting finding that we had from this was that the digestate, the liquid residue that we have, is has a lot of nitrogen in there, high ammonia contents, some potassium, but very little amount of phosphorus. So this is due to the food waste that we are feeding it with, of course. So if you don't have the optimal food waste, first, the biogas production is poorer, but also the liquid residue would have the NP and K in different amounts that are not suitable for use as fertilizer. So if you really wanted to use that liquid as a fertilizer, it might work to a certain extent, but not very well because of the low phosphorus amount. So you can see the phosphorus amount here in red is actually very low. If you want to use this as a fertilizer, it should be at least 4 to 5 times as much. So just a side research to that part. What we did was we added bone meal to the digester, and we did it in a 2-stage fashion. So the first stage, we did just more of the first 3 steps of anaerobic digestion, from hydrolysis to acetogenesis to acidogenesis. So that's the first stage. And then in the second stage, we did the methanogenesis, which is mainly the hydrogen, the methane and hydrogen production. So you can do actually dark fermentation in that stage to produce more hydrogen. So in this more newer type of research, we try to understand the effects of biochar on the first 3 stages and the last methanogenesis stage. And we found that adding biochar improved hydrogen production, and with the addition of the bone meal, it further increased the biogas production and hydrogen production. So adding biochar helps, but when you add bone meal to it, it not just potentially could increase your phosphorus amount in the liquid residue, but it can also increase the biogas production, including hydrogen. So the hydrogen was mainly produced in the first 3 stages. But in the methanogenesis stage, we can see that the addition of biochar under low substrate loading increased the methane production. and boosted the yield. So we looked at the biochar effects again with the addition of the bone meal on the different microbial communities, and the summary of this finding was that improved the abundance of certain species that actually helps with the digestion of the and production digestion of the bone meal with the food waste and the production of hydrogen in the first stage. And in the second stage, the biochar boosted the abundance of these methanogens, like in this case, methanosarcinalis rather than the methanocyanida. So they have different effects on the different species. Yeah. So more. This shows the additional study that we did on the microbial analysis. But the liquid that we took from this, we looked at the nitrogen through the ammonia concentration, the phosphorus concentration, and the potassium concentration, and we found that with the addition of the bone meal, phosphorus concentration has increased in the bottom left chart. Potassium concentration did not change much, while the ammonia concentration has increased slightly, especially at high loading rates. But what we found then, just to summarize from there, is that when you add in the bone meal, the NP and K ratio has changed, and we get higher phosphorus as we expected from the bone meal itself. And this has helped to allow us to have that liquid digestate to be comparable to chemical fertilizers of NPK 15, 15, 15. So when we took this to grow vegetables, we found that the bone meal is comparable to chemical fertilizer, and the bone meal with the biochar is very similar with or without the in terms of the performance of the use in fertilizer. So yeah, the liquid that can be used as fertilizer, the biogas can be used for can be used for the electricity production. So that was our findings from this study here. So just to conclude then, this way of managing food waste in a decentralized manner is feasible. It can convert all the food waste into biogas and fertilizer, but the performance is variable. It really depends on the type of food waste that you are getting. And if you have poor carbon to nitrogen ratio in your food waste, it will destabilize your digester performance. The food waste will still be digested, but you will get lower amounts of biogas, and the fertilizer accordingly will not be so suitable or not so useful as fertilizer itself. So we found that the addition of biochar helped to stabilize the performance of the digester and improve the output from the anaerobic digestion for both biogas and liquid fertilizer. So I'd like to thank all of you for listening, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.